The longest-running annual tractor pull event in the nation. The circuit's top drivers appear by invitation only to compete for $200,000 in prize money. Nearly 75,000 people watch the high-octane vehicles battle it out for a 4-day stretch.
I've been a fan of tractor pulling for a long time, just really probably interested in him, not because I've been a puller, but interested in him because of the engines and that sort of thing.
Why do you come to a tractor pull?
Well, my husband actually has a super stock truck that he drives in the Ohio River Valley, so any chance we can get to go, we go.
And join pretty much the biggest party of the year where gearheads who are also growers can have a gas.
Still to come on America's Heartland. They're big, they're loud, and they were once the backbone of American agriculture. It's Mule Day in Tennessee. Then these young ladies took on a challenge.
How come all the boys get to do it and they reap all the glory? How come girls can't do a tractor team?
And took home national honors. They called themselves the Texas Tractor Girls.
Like people everywhere, farmers aren't immune to developing feelings for the machines they have come to rely on. And those machines don't have to be big, shiny, and modern, like this beautifully restored old 1924 Fordson. Just look around the heartland and you'll find tractors and trucks just like this, long past their prime, restored to glowing health. We met one man who discovered that restoring old tractors was more than just a rewarding hobby. It helped rebuild and re-energize his own life. Here's Jason Schultz again.
Don Doherty was not alive in 1917 when this Holt crawler first rumbled across California farmland. But now he's the caretaker of this and many other important pieces of America's agricultural past.
The original colors of Caterpillars were gray and red.
Preserving the machines that help build a nation is a job that Don takes seriously. Over the past 15 years, he's restored dozens of tractors, trucks, and pieces of heavy-duty equipment.
And this is the way people live. It's about machinery, but it's about people.
Don opens up his Colfax, California property to visitors. Guests take a trip back in time.
This is a 1913 International Harvester truck.
And hear what it takes to bring life to relics of a bygone era. But more importantly, says Don, they learn about the challenges faced by past generations who used it.
People have a romantic view of times past. I think maybe it's correct to some degree, but I don't think it's completely correct. I think, you know, they say the good old days, and I want to show them that they were no good old days. Those people had to work 6 and 7 days a week just to survive.
Don also knows about survival. He still bears the scars of an experience that nearly claimed his life.
In 1990, I was electrocuted by a 7,200 volt power line.
It happened after Don came across a small brush fire and tried to put it out.
What I didn't know, there was a down electrical wire, and I was shoveling dirt on the fire and backed into the wire with my right shoulder. And apparently I passed out. Then the wire was flying around and got the side of my face and head. Actually, when I woke up in the hospital 3 weeks later, I had no idea what had happened to me. 40% burn injury. 3rd and 4th degree burn. I didn't even know there was a thing called 4th degree. When some devastating situation like this occurs, I guess you got a couple of choices. I mean, I could have sat in the house and done nothing. I could have gone to the bar and got drunk every day, which wouldn't have solved anything.
Don says going back to his old job as a city public works director was not possible because of the injuries. So he decided to pursue a dream. That passion traces back to when Don was a child and he would play on an old rusting tractor on his parents' property. A financial settlement with the utility company responsible for the power line gave him the resources to begin collecting and restoring antique machinery.
And I never had time or money to do that with before. And so even though I was pretty well physically limited, there was a possibility that I could still somehow get some people that were knowledgeable, as somewhat that I am, and tend to do this hobby.
2 full-time employees work in Don's restoration shop.
We're in the middle of trying to restore a 1918 autocar rotary hoist dump truck. There's only 4 of these dump trucks left. There's one in Canada, 2 in Pennsylvania, and 1 here.
Well, it looks like it's still in the early stages.
It's still in the early stages. There's lots of parts here on the wall, or on the shelving here. And what I've got is a photograph of a restored one right here.
And this is what it's going to look like.
This is what it's going to look like right here when we're done.
Don's not taking on as many projects as he once did. In 2003, he auctioned off hundreds of tractors and trucks. They ended up all over the world. But visitors still come by, and he still shows off his restored rigs in fairs and parades.
It's a unique quality that Don Doherty carries over anybody I've ever met. He takes great pride in restoring these machines.
The pace has slowed here, but Don says the passion for restoration is still strong. Like the second chance he got, Don's giving a second chance to some remarkable examples of America's hard-working agricultural past.
Life is so short, and we don't know what's going to happen the next day, and I think this is an opportunity to live my dream, and I wanted to do that.
If you like tractor trivia, you'll be interested to know that the John Deere D was the longest produced model ever built. It was made from 1923 to 1953.
Now, we have seen massive tractors locked in a high horsepower tug of war. Entertaining to be sure, but to tell you the truth, there's really nothing new about that sort of story in the heartland. Why, more than a century ago, farmers were testing their workhorses against each other with equal enthusiasm. Except that a workhorse back then was most often a cantankerous mule. And as Pat found out in Columbia, Tennessee, people are still getting a kick out of those famously stubborn animals.
I take a week off from work. It's a vacation for me to get to come to Mule Day.
Coy Flowers is one of thousands who converge on Tennessee to celebrate the virtues of this widely misunderstood creature.
They're a very smart animal. They're not as stubborn as a lot of people want to believe them to be.
This whole country was based on mules. I mean, I don't believe the country would have survived without them.
You could say, along with horses, mules pulled American agriculture through more than a century of growth, right into the industrial age. Mule Day had its beginnings in Columbia as Breeders' Day in the 1840s. Farmers and livestock breeders would bring their animals to market every April to show, buy, and trade. Millions of mules were still helping work farms throughout the heartland right through the early 20th century, and they usually sold for more than horses.
Well, this is the way people worked years ago. I mean, this was a trucking outfit. You look on your Teamsters logo, you'll see a big mule head. Well, that's how it all arrived.
How could a mule be worth more than a good horse? The mule experts say these half donkeys, half mares have horses beat in the categories of strength, endurance, and disposition. That's right, they're downright even-tempered. But what about that famous stubborn streak?
The thing about a mule is smart. He never forgets anything you teach him. And if a mule has a bad habit, it's because someone taught it to him. And they're harder to break from bad habit. But the stubbornness comes from the people that try to train them and don't know what they're doing.
So call it stubbornness, but mule breeders say mules simply won't put themselves in danger or do something they don't think is right. Today, owning mules is more of a hobby than necessity, but some farmers still haven't completely given up the old ways.
I still do some farm work with them. What hay I put up, I cut with mules.
John Skillington certainly knows the value of these creatures. He's had mules ever since he was a child on the family farm. Now a hobbyist, he's very particular about what he looks for in an animal.
We'll start with this mule's head. She has a right good head. See, it's fairly long. She's good between the eyes. Her ears are good. And if you notice, it's just the least bit roving. It's not straight or dished. I like that.
Mules come in all shapes and sizes, from the mini to the mammoth.
This is a leopard Appaloosa mule, and his mother was a brown and white horse. His father was a mammoth black jack. He was a total surprise.
One of the highlights of Mule Days is what they call the gaited mule competition. It involves some of our fancier-footed equine friends. Gaited mules are often bred from the Tennessee walking horse and have a similar smooth gait. Competitors try to show the judges
They take on a challenge, show their mechanical skills, and restore an old tractor, cure its rust and its ills. Up till then, all the fixin' had been done by the boys, so they went to their teacher with a plan to deploy.
How come all the boys get to do it and they reap all the glory? How come girls can't do a tractor team? And he was like, no girls want to do it.
They were starting from scratch on this noble endeavor. See, when it came to mechanics, well, the girls really never had tested their mettle or taken the lead.
We were very girly girl.
But they were undaunted, and their teacher agreed.
The girls come up with the conclusion that anything the boys could do, the girls could do just as well or better.
So they took on the job in ag machinery class, part of an FFA project that could be their pass to a national award and the prizes it brings. It required mechanical skills. Oh, and one other thing.
Teamwork was a hard part. Getting 6 totally different girls to get together and work together, that was difficult too.
After 8 months of work and mechanical strife, that rusty old tractor roared back to life. And the experts will tell you, if you care to ask, that's quite a feat when you take on this task.
It's very much like running a small business in terms of getting the whole group involved, getting people assigned to different tasks. Somebody has to coordinate it, and it's a pretty involved task.
The girls' work was so good when their job was complete, they were invited to FFA Nationals and there to compete against others who'd taken on similar tasks. Who was the best, the judges would ask? Well, the votes were all counted, a very tight race, and our young ladies from Texas wound up second place.
We're just proud to be here and even prouder that we got first runner-up.
But history was made on this contest day because the Texas girls tractor team forever can say that they were the first all-girl team to compete. And as you look to the future, the picture looks sweet.
I can see some very bright futures in marketing, research, and sales, and I think they will be very successful at that.
Just goes to show you, you never can tell what shapes a great future, not just for young ladies, but that tractor as well.
Well, we thank you very much for joining us, and we certainly hope you'll come along with us again next time when we discover more great farms, families, and their fascinating stories in America's heartland. I'm Paul Ryan, and I'll see you next time.
To learn more about this edition of America's Heartland, or to give us your feedback, visit americasheartland.org.
You can see it in the eyes of every woman and man in America's heartland, living close to the land. There's a love for the country and a pride in the brand in America's heartland, living close to the land.
Welcome to English at the Movies, where we teach you American English heard at the movies. Our saying today is fire burning in our bellies, from the movie The Glass Castle. This film is based on a true story about a girl and her family. Her father used his imagination to make them stop thinking about how poor they were. Listen for the saying, fire burning in our bellies.
I found grace in the black water. We ain't like other people. We got a fire burning in our bellies. You were born to change the world, not just add to the noise.
What is the meaning of fire burning in our bellies? Is it there's a fire in our house? Or we have inner strength and drive inside us?
I found grace in the black water. We ain't like other people. We got a fire burning in our bellies. You were born to change the world, not just add to the noise.
Fire burning in our bellies means to have inner strength and drive. Fire in your belly means you have strong ideas and work to make things happen. The father was telling the girl she is strong and special. And that is English at the Movies. I'm Ann Ball.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
VOA presents the following National Geographic program as we continue to explore the world around us.
The next story that I proposed was, photographing one of the most pristine places in the Indian Ocean. It's this tiny atoll called Basasta, India. This is all there is at high tide. That is it. It's this incredible place. It's in the cyclone belt, and of course, since you can't see it at high tide, there's shipwrecks everywhere. And, the outer perimeter creates this almost bathtub-like lagoon. And this is a nursery ground for Galapagos sharks. Sharks and healthy reefs kind of go together because the sharks govern the ratio of reef fish, of algae, of sea urchins, and all those things. So sharks are critical for healthy coral reefs, and these reefs were in incredible condition. They're curious. They're very, very curious. I've always known Galapagos as being very, very night active, so I also wanted to photograph them at night. And this is inside the lagoon on one of the coral reefs. And one of the most magical, 2 hours of my life, just watching these sharks like, moths to a flame. They're just kind of swimming in and swimming out. These images of this experience really just, gave me hope again that even though we've impacted our oceans in so many places, every time you get sort of despair overcomes you, Mother Nature just kind of taps you on your shoulder and goes, I'm still around. You just have to go there. And this is one of those places, etched into my memory forever, Basasta, India, and Europa Atoll.
VOA, exploring the world around us.
На статичных пробах этим вечером превысило расстояние от Москвы до Мадрида.
Russia in the second decade of the 21st century, the century of technology, speed, innovations, and old problems. Anti-Soviets, dissenters, weasels from Khrushchev's era to Putin. Are the origins of the modern protest movement found in the dissident movement of the second half of the 20th century? Hello, I'm Natalia Boltanskaya, and this is the VOA program Parallels, Events and People. Can a citizen openly disagree with his government? In the 1960s, the government's response to this dissent was criminal prosecution. Take Article 190, Part 1 of the Legal Code, systematic distribution by word of mouth of deliberately false information, discrediting the Soviet civil and governmental system, as well as creating and deliberately distributing false information. In the 1970s, it was called anti-Soviet agitation and propaganda, done with the purpose of weakening the Soviet power or committing serious crimes against the government. Punishments